A woman weighs 145 pounds. She gains 12 pounds 1 month and 6 pounds the next month. What is her new weight? Well, the key word here, or words, is gains. She gains weight, or she's adding on weight. And that word adding tells us exactly what to do. We need to take her original weight, 145 pounds, and add on what she gained, which was 12 pounds 1 month and 6 pounds the next month. 5 plus 2 is 7, plus 6 is 13. Write the 3, carry the 1. 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 1 is 6, and then bring down the 1. So after gaining that weight, she weighs 163 pounds. Answer choice D. A cafeteria requires 3 workers for every 24 students. How many workers will be needed for a school with 136 students? So first, we need to determine how many students there are for every 1 worker. So we're going to start with this information. 3 workers for every 24 students. So we take 24 and divide it by 3. 3 goes into 24 8 times, because 8 times 3 is 24. So there's no remainder. That means there's 1 worker for every 8 students. With that information, we can figure out how many workers are needed for 136 students. So we take 136 students and divide it by 8 students to figure out how many workers we need. 8 does not go into 1, but it does go into 13. 8 goes into 13 1 time. 8 times 1 is 8, and when we subtract 13 minus 8, we get 5. Then we bring down our 6. 8 goes into 56 7 times. 8 times 7 is 56. And we subtract and have no remainder. So that means we're going to need a total of 17 workers for these 136 students, which is answer choice C. A duck pond has 350 ducks. If 75 go south for the winter, how many ducks will still be in the pond? This is a subtraction problem. We're starting with 350 ducks and 75 leave. So we start with our 350 ducks and we take away the 75 ducks that left. We can't take 5 from 0 or 7 from 5, so we start from borrowing from our 3, and it becomes a 2. So we put our 1 here, 15, but we're going to borrow from 15, so it is now 14, so that we can make 10 for our last number, so we can take 5 from 10 and get 5. 14 minus 7 is 7, and we bring down our 2. 2 minus nothing is 2, so that means there are B, 275 ducks left in the pond after the 75 go south for the winter. Richard sells cell phones. He is paid a commission of 10% for every phone he sells. The phones cost $140 each. How many phones must Richard sell in order to be paid $840? First, we want to figure out how much he makes from selling each phone. We know that he makes 10% of the cost of the phone, which is $140. Of means to multiply. And we need to change our percent to a decimal. So we take the decimal and move it 2 places to the left. So that means we're multiplying 140 times 1/10. 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 1 is 1. We have one number behind the decimal, so our answer should have one number behind the decimal. So that means that he's making $14 for every phone he sells. And if he wants to be paid $840, then we need to take that $840 and divide it by $14. So 14 goes into 84 6 times. 14 times 6, 24, carry the 2, 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So it goes in perfectly. When we subtract, we get 0, and bring down 0, and 14 goes into 0, 0 times. 14 times 0 is 0. When we subtract, we get a remainder of 0. So that means that Richard needs to sell 60 phones in order to make $840. Answer C. A woman owns a dog walking business. If 2 workers can walk 8 dogs, how many dogs can 3 workers walk? The first thing we need to do is determine how many dogs 1 worker can walk. So we'll start with 2 workers and 8 dogs. So 8 dogs are walked by 2 workers, which is 4 dogs for every 1 worker. So that means 1 worker can walk 4 dogs, so 3 workers times 4 dogs per worker gives us a total of 12 dogs that can be walked. So answer choice B. 12 dogs can be walked by the 3 workers. A woman has 60 ornaments. She decides to divide them evenly among her 3 grandchildren. How many ornaments will each child receive? Well, they gave us a big clue on what to do here, since it says divide. So to find out how many ornaments each child will receive, we need to take our total number of ornaments, 60, and divide that by how many grandchildren she has. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 3 times 2 is 6. If we subtract, we get 0, and then we bring down 0, and 3 goes into 0, 0 times. And 3 times 0 is 0. And you subtract and get 0. We can check this by multiplying 20 times 3. 3 times 0 is 0, and 3 times 2 is 6. And we do, in fact, get 60. So that means that each one of her grandchildren is going to get 20 ornaments, which is answer choice C. A grocery manager sells 2 bags of potatoes for each bag of carrots. He also sells 6 bags of onions for each bag of potatoes. If he sells 12 bags of onions, how many bags of carrots will he sell? Let's start by picking out the important information. In the first sentence, we're told that for each bag of carrots, so each, that means 1, so for 1 bag of carrots, he sells 2 bags of potatoes. In the second sentence, we're told that for each bag of potatoes, he sells 6 bags of onions. Then in the third sentence in our question, it says, if he sells 12 bags of onions, how many bags of carrots will he sell? So let's start with what we know. He sold 12 bags of onions. So where do we find that in our information? Well, 6 bags of onions is 1 bag of potatoes. So 12 bags of onions would be how many bags of potatoes? So we take 12 and divide that by 6, and we get 2. So that's 2 bags of potatoes. If he sold 12 bags of onions, then that means he sold 2 bags of potatoes. And if we go back to that information we were given, if he has sold 2 bags of potatoes, then that means he sold 1 bag of carrots, which is what they asked us to find out. How many bags of carrots? And the answer is 1. A baker uses 6 eggs to bake a cake. How many cakes will he be able to bake with 145 eggs? So we have 145 eggs to split up or divide up to make cakes. And the key word there is divide. So we take our 145 eggs and divide it by 6 to see how many cakes we can bake with 6 eggs in them each. 6 does not go into 1, but it does go into 14. 6 goes into 14 2 times. 6 times 2 is 12. We subtract. 14 minus 12 is 2. Then bring down the 5. And 6 goes into 25 4 times. So write the 4. 6 times 4 is 24. And then we subtract, and we get 1. We have a remainder of 1. How many cakes can we bake with 6 eggs in each cake? 24 cakes, and we'll have 1 egg left over. So a total of 24 cakes, because we wouldn't want to just put 1 egg in a cake. If 1 dog eats 5 pounds of food each week, how many dogs will 65 pounds of food feed for a week? So we know that 1 dog eats 5 pounds of food in a week. If we have 65 pounds of food, how many dogs can we feed? We just need to take the 65 pounds of food and divide it by 5, since each dog requires 5 pounds of food. 5 goes into 6 1 time. 5 times 1 is 5. Subtract, and we get 1. And then we bring down the 5. 5 goes into 15 3 times. 5 times 3 is 15. We subtract, and we get a 0 remainder. So that means that 13 dogs can be fed the 5 pounds a week, which is answer choice C. A man invested $150 in the stock market. During the first week, he lost $45. During the second week, he tripled his money. How much does he have at the end of the second week? So let's start at the beginning. He starts out with $150. Then during that first week, he loses $45. And when money is lost, then we need to subtract. So we're taking away $45 from what he started with. We can't take 5 from 0, so borrow from the 5, it becomes 4. So this is 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 4 minus 4 is 0. And we bring down our 1. So at the end of the first week then, he has $105. Moving to the second sentence, we see that during the second week, he tripled his money. Remember, this is his money now since he lost the $45. So this is what is tripled. And tripled means times 3. So we're going to take $105 and multiply it times 3. 3 times 5 is 15. Write the 5, carry the 1. 3 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. And then 3 times 1 is 3. And that was during the second week. So how much will he have at the end of the second week? $315. Answer choice C. If my local grocery store last year had a total income of $7,056,238 and expenses of $3,998,100, how much profit did it make? Profit is income minus expenses. So that's income minus expenses equals profit, which is what I'm trying to find. So that's exactly what I need to do. I need to take my income of $7,056,238 and subtract my expenses of $3,998,100. And that will give me my profit. So I have 8 minus 0 is 8. 3 minus 0 is 3. 2 minus 1 is 1. And I'll just bring that comma down. And I can't take 8 from 6, so I'm going to need to borrow from the 5. It becomes a 4. So 16 minus 8 is 8. And I can't take 9 from 4. But I also can't borrow from the 0. It can't get any lower. So I'm going to borrow from the 7. It becomes a 6. And this is a 10. But I borrow from it. It becomes a 9. So I have 14 minus 9, which is 5. 9 minus 9 is 0. And 6 minus 3 is 3. So $3,058,138, which would be answer A. A man goes to the grocery store. He buys a carton of milk for $4.50, a dozen eggs for $2.25, and a pound of ground beef for $1.99. If the tax is 15%, what will his total bill be? So first, we'll take the prices for the 3 items that he's buying and add those together to find the total before tax. So $4.50 for milk plus the $2.25, and then finally $1.99. And we're adding those. 9 plus 5 is 14. So write the 4 and carry the 1. 9 plus 1 is 10. 5 plus 2 is 7. So 10 and 7 is 17. So write the 7 and carry the 1. And don't forget that when you're adding, you need to line up the decimals, and you can just bring that decimal right down into your answer. So we have 4 plus 2 is 6, 7, 8. So his total before he pays tax is $8.74. But we've got to now calculate how much tax he's going to pay on what he's buying. So he's going to pay 15% of his total. Let me write that out. 15% of his total, which is $8.74. Now, of in math usually means to multiply. But I can't take this percent and multiply it times $8.74. First, we have to change the percent into a decimal. And to do that, the decimal is at this point behind our number. To change our percent into a decimal, we have to take it and move it 2 places to the left. So to find the tax, we'll take $8.74 and multiply it times 1/1500. 5 times 4 is 20. Write the 0, carry the 2. 5 times 7 is 35. Plus 2 is 37. Write the 7, carry the 3. 5 times 8 is 40. Plus 3 is 43. And then we'll get rid of these because now we need to multiply times 1. So first write a 0 placeholder since we're not multiplying in the ones place anymore. And then take 1 times 4 to get 4. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 8 is 8. And now we can add those together. 0 plus 0 is 0. 7 plus 4 is 11. So write the 1, carry the 1. 3 plus 7 is 10, plus another 1 is 11. Write the 1, carry the 1. Then we have 8, 9, plus 4, 13. And there are 4 numbers total behind the decimal places, which means our answer will also have 4 numbers behind the decimal. So here's our decimal. We need to have 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers behind the decimal. And that doesn't look like an amount of money I've ever seen. But if we get rid of these last 2, then we have $1.31. And we can do that since 1 wouldn't cause this 1 to be rounded up. Since we only round up if the number is 5 or above. So we can really just get rid of them. So that means that he's going to pay $1.31 in tax. So we take his total before tax and then add the tax to it. So $1.31. And don't forget to line up those decimals. 4 plus 1 is 5. 7 plus 3 is 10, so write the 0, carry the 1. Bring that decimal down to the answer. Then we have 8, 9, 10. So his total with tax and everything is $10.05, which is answer choice C. A leaky faucet drips at the rate of 2 drops per second. Each drop is 25 thousandths milliliters. How many liters of water does the faucet leak per year? A year is 365 days. So I'm going to start with this 25 thousandths milliliters because it says it drips at a rate of 2 drops per second. But each drop is 25 thousandths milliliters. So I need to multiply that times 2 to figure out how much water is drips each second. Because it drips 2 drops per second, so 2 drops, I need to multiply 25 thousandths times 2. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 0 is 0, and obviously 2 times 0 again would be 0. We have 1, 2, 3 numbers behind the decimal, so our answer should also have 3 numbers behind the decimal. Really, we can get rid of this 0, it's unnecessary. So it's 5/100 milliliters of water drips out each second. So that's 1 second. So 5/100 milliliters per 1 second. But they want to know how much in liters, and we're going to convert that in just a minute, leak out per year. So I need to convert from seconds to years. And I'm going to do that by multiplying by conversion factors. So if I have seconds in my denominator, then I need to have seconds in my numerator. And I know that 60 seconds is 1 minute. Now the reason I put seconds in these diagonal positions is that we're multiplying fractions, and so those units will cross cancel. So I'm going to continue on converting. So I've converted now from seconds to minutes. So now I need to do the same thing with minutes. So minutes in my numerator. And I'm going to convert minutes into hours. And I know that 60 minutes makes 1 hour. So now see, my minutes again are in those diagonal positions, so I can cross cancel them. I need to continue on converting. So now hours needs to go in the numerator. And I'm going to convert hours to days. And I know that, or day. I know that there are 24 hours in 1 day. So my hours cross cancel. And I've converted now into days, so I'm almost there per year. So now I need to multiply times how many days are in a year. And that one they told us 365 days in 1 year. Whew! So I have a lot to multiply. I cross cancel these days. So we can start anywhere. Say we could multiply 60 times 60 first. So 60 times 60, 0, 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 6 is 36, so 3,600, and then maybe multiply that times 24, 3,600 times 24. 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 6 is 24, carry the 2. 4 times 3 is 12, 13, 14. Put a 0 placeholder for the 4 and move on to the 2. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 6 is 12, carry the 1, and 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Add up your zeros. 4 plus 0 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6, 1 plus 7 is 8. Okay, so far I've multiplied 60 times 24. We can go ahead and take this number and multiply it times our 5/100. So 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 0 is 0, 5 times 4 is 20, carry the 2. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 2 is 32, carry the 3. 5 times 8 is 40, plus 3 is 43. And we have 2 numbers behind the decimal, so our answer should also have 2 numbers behind the decimal. And then we have one last number to multiply by, and that's 365. So let's see. Just going to try and squeeze it in right here. I can get rid of these zeros back here. They don't affect my number. So I'm just going to multiply times 365. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16. Carry the 1. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 1 is 21. Okay, so get rid of these so that we can move on to our next number, which is 6. So first I need to put a 0 placeholder for the 5. 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 2 is 12, carry the 1. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19, carry the 1. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 is 25. So get rid of those. And then we need now 2 0 placeholders for the 6 and the 5, and now we're multiplying times the 3. So 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12. And we need to add all this up. So we get 0 here and 0 here. 6 plus 2 is 8. 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 6 is 16. Carry the 1. 9 plus 1 is 10. 15, 17. Carry the 1. 2, 4, 5. So 1, we have 1, 2, 3, comma. 1, 2, 3, comma. So that is 1,576,800 milliliters per year. Notice all of our other units are canceled out except for milliliters per year. So it's milliliters per year. But if you recall, they wanted to know how many liters of water were leaked out per year. So we need to convert this 1,576,800 milliliters per year into liters. So we can again use a conversion factor. So milliliters goes in our denominator so that it cross cancels out when we multiply. And I know that 1 liter is 1,000 milliliters. So when we multiply across, we get our milliliters cross cancel. We get 1,576,800 divided by 1,000. So we can cancel these 2 zeros, and then dividing by 10 means that our decimal moves in 1 place. So what we have after we cancel our zeros is 15,768 divided by 10. And when we divide by 10, that just means to take your decimal and move it 1 place to the left. So that's 1,576.8 milliliters per year, which is answer choice B. So a lot of converting on this one. A woman has 2 bank accounts. One contains $329 and awards 4% in interest each month. The other contains $921 and awards 7% in interest each month. What will the combined value of her 2 accounts be at the end of the month? Combined means that we're going to add the totals of those 2 accounts together. So looking at these answer choices, we can already eliminate a couple. If you add together 921 and 329, you're definitely going to get more than $342.08. So we already know we can eliminate this answer. It's the same with B as well. $921 plus $329 is going to be more than $985.47. With these last 2, we may actually have to do a little bit of calculating to figure those out. So it says her first account is $329 and she gets 4% in interest each month. We're trying to find the combined value at the end of the month, which means that she has earned that interest for each one of her accounts. So let's start with the account with $329 in it. She has $329 and she earns 4% of that every month. Of means to multiply. If we want to find out how much interest she earns on an account, we need to multiply $329 times 4%, which means we have to change our percent, 4%, into a decimal. So 4% as a decimal, the decimal's in the back, move it 2 places to the left, is 4 hundredths. So we're multiplying 329 times 4 hundredths. And again, this is to find how much interest was earned in this account. So 4 times 9 is 36, write the 6 and carry the 3. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11, write the 1 and carry the other. 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 plus 1 is 13. Since we have 2 numbers behind the decimal place here, then we have 2 numbers behind the decimal place in our answer. So that means that this account with $329 in it earned $13.16 in interest. So together, this account has a total $329 plus $13.16. When you're adding, you have to make sure to line up the decimal places. And the decimal in 329 is at the back, and you can add a 0, 0 there to just line everything up. So we add those together. 0 plus 6 is 6, 0 plus 1 is 1, bring down the decimal. 9 plus 3 is 12, write the 2, carry the 1, 2, 3, 4. So $342.16 is what's in the first account at the end of the month. The next account starts with $921 in it, and it earns 7% in interest each month. So that means that we're going to take our $921 and multiply that times 7%, because this account earns 7% interest, 7% of the total, and of means to multiply. So we've got to do the same thing we did with 4%. Take our 7% and change it to a decimal. The decimal's in the back, move it 2 places to the left, and it's 7 hundredths. So we multiply 921 times 7 hundredths so that we can find out how much interest was earned in this account. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14, write the 4, carry the 1. 7 times 9 is 63, plus 1 is 64. And since there are 2 numbers behind the decimal place, we need to have 2 numbers behind our decimal place. So this account with $921 in it earned $64.47 in interest. So altogether, when we add 921, again, we can put that decimal at the zeros, and then the $64.47. Line up those decimals when you're adding. 7 and 0 is 7. 0 plus 4 is 4. Bring down the decimal. 1 plus 4 is 5. 2 plus 6 is 8. 9 plus nothing is 9. So that account has a total of $985.47 in it. Now again, we're looking for the combined value of her 2 accounts, which means that we've got to add those 2 accounts together. So we have $985.47. And then we add to that the $342.16. Line up those decimals. 7 plus 6 is 13. Write the 3, carry the 1. 4, 5, 6. Bring down the decimal. 5 plus 2 is 7. 8 plus 4 is 12. Write the 2, carry the 1. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we get $1,327.63, which we can see is answer choice D. A florist has 733 flowers. How many full bouquets of 16 flowers can he make? we want to take this number 733 and divide it by 16 because we're dividing the flowers up into bouquets. So we take 733 and divide it by 16. 16 goes into 73 4 times. 16 times 4 is 64. And then we subtract. And we get 9. Bring down the 3. And 16 goes into 93 5 times. 16 times 5 is 80. We subtract again. We get 13. So we have a remainder. And we could stop here. Or we could add a decimal. And add a decimal here in our answer. And add a 0. And then we could bring that 0 down. And we could find out what our decimal is. So 16 now goes into 130 8 times. 16 times 8 is 128. And again, we subtract, and we get a remainder of 2. And we could continue on until we have no remainder left, and we could find out what our whole answer is, the whole decimal number. But really, it's not necessary. If we look at our answer choices, we've already found our answer. We were asked how many full bouquets could be made out of 733 flowers, and we found it. You can make 45 full bouquets with some flowers left over. Actually, 13 flowers is what would be left over, or 8/10. So our answer is B. 45 full bouquets of flowers can be made out of the 733 flowers using 16 in each bouquet. If 1 acre of forest contains 294 pine trees, how many pine trees are contained in 25 acres? This is a multiplication problem. There are 294 pine trees in 1 acre, and we have 25 of those. So there are 294 pine trees here, 294 pine trees in this acre, 294 pine trees in this acre. So you could add 294 to itself 25 times, or you could just multiply 294 times 25. 5 times 4 is 20, so write the 0 and carry the 2. 5 times 9 is 45. Plus 2 is 47, so write the 7, carry the 4. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14. And we'll get rid of these, put a 0 placeholder to move over to the tens place and multiply. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 9 is 18, so write the 8 and carry the 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. And then we add these together to get our final answer. 0 plus 0 is 0. 7 plus 8 is 15. Write the 5, carry the 1. 8 plus 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13, so write the 3, carry the 1. Then we have 5, 6, 7. So there are 7,350 trees in 25 acres, which is answer choice D. A woman earns $750 each week. If she pays $260 in taxes, how much does she have left? Now, this phrase right here, how much is left, tells you that you need to subtract. She gets paid $750, but taxes, that's money that's taken out of her check. So we need to subtract 260 from 750. 750 minus 260. 0 minus 0 is 0. We cannot take 6 from 5, so we need to borrow from the 7. It becomes a 6, and then we have 15 here. 15 minus 6 is 9, and 6 minus 2 is 4. So that means after the taxes are taken out, she's left with $490. A man goes to a casino with $125. He loses $30 on blackjack, then loses another $40 on roulette. How much money does he have left? So the key word here is loses. He's losing money. We see it in two different places. He's losing money, which means that's money that is taken away from him or subtracted from his total. So to determine what he has left, we're going to subtract the money he lost from what he came with. So he started with $125. Then he lost $30, so subtract $30 from how much he has. 5 minus 0 is 5, and 12 minus 3 is 9. So after he lost the $30, he still had $95 left. But then he lost $40. So from that 95 he had, he lost another 40. 5 minus 0 is 5, and 9 minus 4 is 5. So that means after all the money he lost, he was left with $55. Answer choice C. A child is selling bars for a school fundraiser. He starts out with 65. If he has 13 left, how many did he sell? So he's starting out with 65 to sell. He only has 13 left out of his total. So we have to figure out how many then he sold. So we need to subtract the 13 from 65. 5 minus 3 is 2. 6 minus 1 is 5. And since he has 13 left, that means he sold 52 of the bars. Answer choice A. A classroom has 15 boys and 13 girls. If 10 more girls join the class, what is the ratio of girls to boys? Well, this last sentence tells us how to set this up. What is the ratio of girls to boys? So we're going to have girls to boys. And there are lots of ways to write ratios. You could actually write out the word to like they did in the question, or you could write it as a fraction with girls on the top and then boys as the denominator. But if we look at our answers, we can see they used a colon for 2. So I wrote mine the same way, girls to boys. And before we can write our ratio, we need to know how many girls there are. So it says the classroom has 15 boys and 13 girls. And then 10 more girls join the class. 10 more means that we have to add 10. So we had 13 girls, and then we add 10 more to that. 3 plus 0 is 3, 1 plus 1 is 2. Which means now there's a total of 23 girls, 2, and then boys didn't change. We had 15 boys, so we still have 15 boys. And it is very important that the ratio is written in the way it's asked to be written. So if you look at A, you can see it's the same that we have, 23 to 15, except it's reversed. And so that would not be the ratio of girls to boys. This is the ratio of boys to girls, which is not the same. So our answer is answer D, 23 girls to 15 boys. A woman buys 23 pounds of potatoes. She gives 10% of them to a neighbor and 15% of them to her mother. How many pounds does she have left? So this phrase, how many left, tells us that we're going to need to subtract. But subtract what? She starts out with 23 pounds. But it doesn't tell us, and she gives 2 pounds away to this person and 4 pounds away to this person. They tell us what percent of 23 pounds is given away. And again, what percent of the 23 pounds is given away. So we need to figure out how many pounds that is. So let's start with 10% of, and it says of them. And what does them refer to? Well, it refers back to the 23 pounds. So it's 10% of 23 pounds. Of means to multiply. And we're going to multiply 10% and 23. But first, we have to take our percent and change it to a decimal. So we move the decimal 2 places over. Now we can multiply 23 times 1/10 or 10 hundredths, and those are the same. So I'm just going to multiply times 1/10. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 2 is 2, with one number behind the decimal, so that's 2 3/10 pounds that was given to the neighbor. Now we're going to do something similar to figure out how much was given to her mother. To her mother, she gave 15% of them. And again, the them refers back to the 23 pounds. So 15% of 23 pounds. And again, of means to multiply. And we have to change our percent to a decimal. Move it 2 places to the left. So now we're multiplying 23 times 15 hundredths. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. We need to put a 0 placeholder. 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 2 is 2. Then we add these up. We get 5, 4, and 3. And then looking back at those numbers we multiplied together, we have 2 numbers behind the decimal. So our product must have 2 numbers behind the decimal, which means that she gave 3 45 hundredths pounds to her mother. Before we can determine how much she has left, we first need to total up how much she gave away. So we're going to take the 3 45 hundredths and add the 2 3/10 to it. Remember, when adding or subtracting decimals, we have to line up the decimals. So that's 2 3/10. And then you can fill in with as many zeros as needed after the decimal. 5 and 0 is 5. 4 plus 3 is 7. Bring down that decimal. 3 plus 2 is 5. So now we know the total amount that she gave away. And using that, we can figure out how much she has left after she gave away the 5 75 hundredths pounds. So we'll take our 23 pounds and subtract 5 75 hundredths pounds. So we're subtracting with decimals, which means we need to line them up. And the decimal in 23 is at the back. And we can add 2 zeros there because the number doesn't change when you add zeros after the decimal. And then we can subtract the 5 75 hundredths. We can't take 5 from 0 or 7 from 0 or 5 from 3. We're going to have to borrow starting all the way over here with the 2, and it becomes a 1. So this is 13, but we've got to borrow from that. It becomes 12. 10, but we've got to borrow from that. It becomes 9. And then finally we have a 10 there at the end. So 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 7 is 2. We bring that decimal down. 12 minus 5 is 7. and then we bring down the 1. So that means that after she gives away the 5 7/75 pounds to her neighbor and her mom, she's left with 17 25 pounds, which is answer choice C. Three people go to a restaurant. Their bill comes to $78. They decide to split the cost. One person pays $4.50. The next person pays 3 times that amount. How much will the third person have to pay? So we know the total and how much one person paid. We're also given an idea and a way to figure out how much the second person paid. It says the next person pays 3 times that amount. 3 times, and that amount being $4.50. So to figure out how much they paid, we take the $4.50 and multiply it times 3. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. So write the 5, carry the 1. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Since we have 2 numbers behind the decimal place here, we have 2 numbers behind the decimal place in our product. So that means that the second person ended up paying $13.50. Still, though, that doesn't tell us how much the third person paid. In order to figure that out, we first have to figure out the total that was paid by the first 2 people. So take $13.50 and add the $4.50. This will give us the total that was already paid. 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 5 is 10. So write the 0, carry the 1, bring down the decimal to the answer. 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 1 is 8, and then we bring down that 1. So the first 2 people paid a total of $18. And the total bill was $78. So how much was left for the third person? Well, we just need to take the total, $78, and subtract how much was paid by the first 2 people. 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. Bring down the decimal. And then 8 minus 8 is 0. And 7 minus 1 is 6. So that means that that third person got the biggest share of the bill. They'll have to pay $60, which is answer A. A man owns a store. One week he sells 100 loaves of bread. If he sells twice as many loaves the next week, how many loaves did he sell in total? So total tells us that we need to add up all of the loaves of bread that have been sold. We know he sold 100 loaves of bread in the first week, but then the next week it just says he sold twice as many. And that word twice means to multiply times 2. So we're going to take 100 and multiply it times 2. In the first week he sold 100, and in the second week he then sold 200. That's 100 times 2, or twice as many. So how much did he sell in total? We add up all of his loaves of bread and we get 300 loaves of bread. Answer D. A steak dinner at a restaurant costs $15.99. If a man buys a steak dinner for himself and 4 friends, what will the total cost be? So this man is buying a steak dinner for himself and 4 friends, which means he's buying a total of 5 steak dinners. So he's going to pay for this steak dinner 5 times. Times means multiplication. So to find our total cost, we're going to take how much one steak dinner costs and multiply it times the number of steak dinners being purchased, which is 5. 5 times 9 is 45, so write the 5 and carry the 4. 5 times 9 again is 45, plus 4 is 49, and carry the 4. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 4 is 29, write the 9 and carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. And now looking at that answer, that looks way too big. And the reason for that is we haven't put our decimal place in yet. When multiplying numbers, the number of numbers behind the decimal place depends on the number of numbers behind the decimal in the two numbers you multiplied together. So here we have 2 numbers behind our decimal, and so we have 2 numbers behind our decimal in our answer as well. So the answer is $79.95, which is answer choice D. It's going to cost him $79.95 to pay for his steak dinner and the steak dinners of his 4 friends. A woman earns $65,000 each year. She must pay 36% of this amount, $65,000, in income tax. How much income tax does the woman pay each year? 36% of $65,000 is income tax. This word of means to multiply. So we're going to multiply 36% times 65,000. But first, we need to change the percent into a decimal. So 36%, we take the decimal and move it 2 places to the left. So it's 36 hundredths. So we're going to take 65,000 and multiply it times 36 hundredths. So we'll start by just placing those 3 zeros. And then 5 times 6 is 30. Carry the 3. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 3 is 18. And then we have those 3 zeros plus a 0 for the 5. And 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 3 is 18, 19, 20, 21. So we bring these 0 plus 0, 0, 0 plus 0, 0. Same thing here and here as well. Then 8 plus 6 is 14. Write the 4, carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. And then bring down the 2. Now if we look back at what we multiplied together, we have 2 numbers behind the decimal. So we should have 2 numbers behind the decimal in our answer. And then we count 3 over, and there's our comma. So $23,400 in income tax, which is answer choice B. So again, that word of means to multiply. But before you multiply by a percent, you need to change it to a decimal.